Apart from being an expert panelist for several news channels and columnist for newspapers in the country, he has covered 6 FIFA World Cup, 6 European Football Championships, and 3 Hockey World Cups. He has also covered many multi-sports events, including 3 Olympics and several Asian and Commonwealth Games. Apart from being an ardent sports lover, he is a deputy proctor of the University of Delhi, deputy chairperson of the Sports Board of the University of Delhi, and works as an associate professor in the Department of English, Khalsa College, Delhi University. Please give a big hand to Mr. Novi Kapadia. Please, sir. Over to you, Novi, sir. I would request you to invite all the panelists over here.
Okay, so time is less, so I'll call up everybody. So we started a bit late. So I'll request Suvrat Thatte from All India Football Federation to come up on the stage. Mr. O.P. Singh, ex-director Haryana Sports and Inspector General of Police, Haryana. Mr. Stephen Sundaram from One World Football. Mr. Tom Calder from the Australian Commission, Mr. David Thiru. So we'll all join and then we'll join us up on the stage. Anyway, before we start the proceedings for the morning, we kick off with this very interesting initiative which Magic Bus has done, that this Shivam, a young boy from Magic Bus, he'll share his case story of the experiences, that the way sports has been so positive in his life and how it has changed things, and the way he is seen as a different person by the family and the community. The sort of the whole image of a person who comes through sports, which I think many people who work with grassroots sports initiatives feel that. So let Shivam speak his story and narrate his story. That will be briefly, and Havovi will translate. So I'll request Shivam to come up and then we'll formally start the seminar. Shivam and Havovi.
Good morning all of you. My name is Shivam Kumar and I live in 5 block Khizirpur. Magic Bus joined in 2008. मैंने Magic Bus पहले मैं एक स्पोर्ट कॉम्प्लेक्स में फुटबॉल खेलता था, जहाँ पर मुझे एक भाई भूपेंद्र भाई थे जो कि मिले मुझे। फिर मैंने देखा कि वो पार्क में एक सेशन ले रहे थे मैजिक बस का, जब मुझे नहीं पता कि मैजिक बस क्या है। तो मैंने भाई से पूछा कि भाई मुझे भी ज्वाइन करना है। वो कुछ स्किल कर रहे थे जो मुझे बहुत अच्छी लगी। मैं गया भाई से पास, फिर मैंने बोला भाई मुझे भी सीखना है। तो मैंने जैसे ही गया वैसे ही मेरे भाई बॉल लेके मैं स्किल करा, तो भाई कह रहे ये लड़का कुछ तो एकदम से आया, एकदम से स्किल कर पाया। फिर उन्होंने मुझे मैजिक बस ज्वाइन करवाया। फिर वहाँ पर मुझे सतीश भाई और नितिन भाई मिले थे। फिर उन्होंने मेरा मैजिक बस में टीम में MBF टीम में ट्रायल लिया था, जहाँ मैं सिलेक्ट हुआ था। तो मैं पहले ऐसे ही था जो एक स्कूल जाता था और भाग जाता था, इधर उधर घूमता रहता था फालतू, और काफ़ी लड़कों के साथ इधर उधर ऐसे कभी मैं चुटकी वगैरह भी खा ले लेता था। फिर मैं जब मुझे अच्छा लगने लगा कि मैं जो फिर धीरे धीरे मैं अपने आप ही आदत में नहीं छूटने लग गई मेरे से। फिर जब मैं क्या नाम है भूपियाई से मिला, तो उन्होंने मुझे, मेरा एक स्कूल था जो गवर्नमेंट था पहले अपने इधर, फिर वहाँ पर मेरा एडमिशन साउथ मोतीबाग एक फ़ुटबॉल के स्कूल में एडमिशन करवाया, जहाँ से मैं काफ़ी टूर्नामेंट खेला, सुरबोत्तो कप, जतन वेदी, कुंडो कप वगैरह। फिर वहाँ पर मेरा सिलेक्शन एक एकेडमी में भी नितिन भाई और सतीश भाई ने करवाया, जो बाइकिंग मोटर फुटबॉल एकेडमी थी। वहाँ भी मैं काफ़ी अच्छे दिल्ली लीग A डिवीज़न वगैरह खेला, सीनियर डिवीज़न भी खेला। और फिर मैं जो उसमें काफ़ी रहा। फिर मेरी फैमिली जो थी वो भी मेरे से पहले खुश नहीं थी कि ये ऐसे ही जब आता स्कूल से भाग जाता था, घूमता रहता था उधर उधर। तो मेरी फैमिली ने भी काफ़ी खुश हुई, मेरी फैमिली मेरे से, कि अब ये लड़का पहले ऐसे ही था घूमता रहता था, अब इधर देखो अपनी जब से मैजिक बस में आया पता नहीं क्या हो गया इसे, अब ये कोई अपना काम से काम पढ़ाई और अपना खेल कूद। फिर मैंने सोचा कि जैसे मेरे में बदलाव आ गया ऐसे मैं अपनी कम्युनिटी में भी चेंज ला सकता हूँ। तो फिर मैं सेशन जब मैं लेने जाता था तो कुछ बच्चे थे जो नहीं आते थे, जो स्मोक वगैरह गुटखे वगैरह खाते थे। तो कुछ बच्चे थे जो आ जाते थे, तो वो बच्चे नहीं आते थे। फिर मैंने ऐसी वो एक दिन खेल लेते बच्चे कुछ, तो वो जो स्मोक करते थे वो बच्चे नहीं आ रहे थे। तो एक बार ऐसी एक बच्चा उसमें से उठ के आता है, कहता भाई मैं भी खेलूँगा। मैंने नहीं यार तुम ऐसी बेकार हो। तो फिर वो बच्चे नहीं, वो आया, वो खेला। फिर मैंने उससे स्मोक वगैरह के बारे में बातचीत करी एक सेशन के बाद, तो वो कहते कि हम नहीं छोड़ेंगे। तो काफ़ी ऐसी डिस्कशन बात चलती रही। फिर एक टूर्नामेंट था, एक ऐसी फ्रेंडली टूर्नामेंट ओपन, मैं उन्हें वहाँ खिलाने ले गया। जब वो वहाँ पर खेलने लगे तो वो सेमीफाइनल तक पहुँचे थे, पर लेकिन वो वहाँ पर हार गए। तो वहाँ पर काफ़ी बड़ी ट्रॉफी मेडल थे, सेलिब्रेट थे। तो वो बाद में आके बोलते हैं कि हम तो जीत जाते, ये हार गए। मैंने बोला तो ये अपनी गलती से तुमने हारा है। तो फिर वो बच्चों ने धीरे धीरे स्मोक वगैरह ये छोड़ना कम करा, और उनकी अपने आप ही उनमें बदलाव आ गया। फिर उनकी जो फैमिली थी वो भी खुश हुई कि ये तो हम भी नहीं कर पाए जो तूने कर दिखाया पाया। तो काफ़ी मतलब अब मेरी कमेटी में चेंज आया। जो पहले थे जो मुझे तू तरह से बोलते थे मेरी कमेटी वाले, अब वो मेरे से मतलब तरीके से बात करते हैं, और काफ़ी मतलब चेंजेस आए।
So just for, I know lots of people followed what Shivam said, and I think the spirit of it was quite evident. Basically, he's talked about a journey, his own journey, from being a young boy who just went to school and then used to roam around in the streets and, on his own or with his friends and indulge in a few bad habits, from being that child to a child who's a role model in the community now, mentoring other children to stop various bad habits. So he's basically narrated that journey. So he started off by talking about how he joined Magic Bus, how he knew nothing about it, but he was intrigued by the fact that children play in a group, and so he approached mentors there and spoke to them, and they enrolled him in the program. And he says that as he started playing and as he got involved in the game, he stopped a number of bad habits. So there's something called chutki, which is a little packet of, it's not it is tobacco based, I think, okay. So he used to have that sometimes, and he completely stopped that after he began playing football. He's also talked about the fact that he used to go to government school earlier. From there he moved to a school where there was some kind of training in football. He's learned a bit of English. He got selected in an academy. He played senior division. Obviously, this is something that's really important to him, this movement into, a senior level of playing football. And he talked about how his family used to think of him as just another child who roamed the streets and went to school and didn't do very much with his life. And now they're looking at him being a completely responsible young man who does the Magic Bus sessions, goes to school, does a bit of study, takes his football seriously. So the way his family looks at him has changed. Perhaps for me, one of the nicest things he said was about the fact that he wants to now encourage other children in his community to develop the same way that he did, to have the same opportunities that he did. And so he's talking about the fact that he's now a mentor in the community, conducting sessions with children. And he realized there are some children who don't come to the session and who also consume various substances. So when they approached him asking to be allowed to play, he said, no, you can't, because you smoke or you chew tobacco, and that's not really a nice thing. And they said, well, these are our habits and we're not going to change them. So he said, well, whatever. But slowly they began playing together, and they went for a tournament. At the tournament, it so happened that they performed really well, but they lost the semi-finals. So he took that opportunity to link their bad habits to the loss, talking about the fact that if you were not chewing tobacco or things like that, you'd probably be healthier and you'd probably have more stamina, so you'd probably play better, so you probably have a better chance at winning. And he just thinks that this kind of thing encourages people to stop substance consumptions, and he thinks that this works. And he feels that because of this, he's kind of got respect in the community and people look at him differently, and I think that's something he's tremendously proud of.
Yeah, thank you, Havovi. So we'll kick off now, and I'll introduce the topic over here, grassroots sports and development. So we sort of divide this into two categories. That what the experience of Shivam, what Havovi translated for our foreign guests, is grassroots sports basically to take people away from all sorts of malpractices, avoid smoking, drugs, violence. Is grassroots sports only for that category? Is it a way to a healthy life, to a more disciplined life? To get people also, especially in a country with a vast cultural diversity like India, that it gets very important that people of different communities and all play together, so that the various stereotypes which unfortunately Delhi has been witnessing in the last week can get blurred or removed. Sports can play a major role. So that is one aspect of grassroots sports, to get people out of boredom, out of all sorts of other type of nefarious activities and into sport. At the next stage, the whole idea of competitive sport is that we always have this saying from coaches that, from quantity will come quality. So from grassroots sports, is there a very thin dividing line between people participating in large numbers and then developing into quality? What is essential? Should grassroots sports only focus on social amelioration, or is it also very important that is the first step forward to developing a good national team, for people to emerge, to play, a healthy lifestyle, yes, but from that also some will emerge. Many countries which are successful in sports have a great grassroots program. Everybody obviously doesn't become necessarily a great player or sportsman or athlete or football player. So it's a very delicate balance that has to be maintained. It's like a chicken and egg situation. What comes first? What is essential? Should focus only be on competitive sport, only on sort of people who are talented? How do you decide then who is talented? Will they have the temperament to develop? So it's something which, in India for years we've been talking. This very popular phrase was catch them young, which often most National Sports Federation just paid lip service to. Also not to blame them fully. There's shortage of resources. As our urban areas keep expanding, there's shortage of playing space. Colony playgrounds are declining. So in this new environment, 21st century environment, where there's also lots of other attractions and lots of other, opportunities for entertainment for people, how do we get a younger generation interested in sports? And not just watching sports, which India is often accused of, that we are just a nation of watching sports, whether UEFA Champions League, EPL, international cricket, Wimbledon, all of us watch and talk a lot, but do we actually play also? So how to get a new generation into actually active participation in sports, and what role does grassroots sports play in that? So I think these are the categories I'd like all our distinguished speakers to focus on. And, they all have different areas of experience, from All India Football Federation to Australia to Kenya to Haryana, which is probably one of the most successful states in promotion of sports in India. So they can all share their experiences. And I'll request, first of all, as we are talking about really grassroots development, that Suvrat Thatte, Development Manager, All India Football Federation, who is working on grassroots football. So to give his contribution, he works for the All India Football Federation, responsible for strategic planning, implementation of grassroots program, which technical director, very senior person, Mr. Rob Ban from Netherlands, has set across. So he works with the technical director academies, and he holds an MBA in football business from the University of Liverpool, has worked with the Asian Football Confederation. So I'll request Suvrat to kick off proceedings. All speakers have about 8 to 10 minutes.
Good morning, everyone. I represent the All India Football Federation, and as part of grassroots sports session, I'm going to speak a little bit about grassroots football and grassroots football development program that the All India Football Federation has initiated. A little bit information about what are our objectives, what is the philosophy, what do we want to achieve out of it. So I'll just give a quick overview of the program. The AIFF aligns itself with the FIFA definition of grassroots, which is football for kids, boys and girls, between 6 to 12 years of age. We started the grassroots development program in December 2012. The program is primarily driven through state football associations, but is inclusive of all stakeholders, which includes football clubs, both amateur and professional, schools, NGOs, and community initiatives. The program has rapidly expanded, now spread to 6 states who have adopted our program in the long term, or for the long term. To give examples, we now have on board Mizoram, Manipur, Maharashtra, Goa, Chandigarh, and Kerala, who are now our project states for the grassroots program. Just to list out some key achievements that we have had in the last little over a year. We finished second in the Asian Football Confederation Annual Awards 2013 for Grassroots Member Association of the Year, which basically recognizes efforts in grassroots football across all member associations of the AFC. We've now partnered with the Football Federation of Australia through the Australian Sport Outreach Program. Tom is there as well from there, which is helping us to further our grassroots initiatives in India. FIFA and AFC2 have recognized AIFF's efforts in grassroots and have extended significant support for the program over the last year or so. What are the key features of grassroots football? Now, FIFA defines grassroots football as to allow access to football to a child in his or her own environment. In short, what we also say is, if a child cannot come to football, let us bring football to the child. Essentially meaning that football or grassroots football has to spread in every nook and corner of each region. It has to attract young players to the sport, create a fun, safe, and a positive environment for the child. It should be inclusive. Football is for everyone, irrespective of skin color, gender, ethnicity, nationality, etc. Grassroots football can be played anywhere and everywhere. It consists of small-sided games and age-specific activities. Development objectives have to come before winning. That is one of the key fundamentals of grassroots sport and essentially grassroots football. It allows for flexible organization and with modest requirements. So that's some of the key essential features of grassroots football. Now we are going to focus on 2 topics specifically today. One is to locate and establish the importance of grassroots football in an Indian context. Secondly, what are the importance of and benefits of a federated structure in the effective implementation of grassroots programs. Let me start with the first topic. As you can see here, this is what we call as the football pyramid. Grassroots football is at the base of this football pyramid. This leads into academies and youth football, going on to semi-professional or amateur football, leading to the professional game, which in India, for example, is the I-League, and finally going to the pinnacle. Now we come to the second aspect of our discussion, which essentially is about a federated structure in the implementation of a grassroots program. Now obviously, as being the national federation, we have members who are state associations. So our grassroots program is primarily driven through these state associations, which come under the overall umbrella of the All India Football Federation. Our members, again, as I mentioned, are state football associations, union territory football associations, the Railway Sports Board, and the Services Sports Control Board. A federated structure allows the AIFF to create and implement an inclusive program in each state, together with the state associations, with the involvement of key stakeholders. what we do as part of our program is go to each state, each project state, identify what are the specific needs of each state, and then develop a tailor-made program for that state, which caters to those specific requirements. So a federated structure for us as the national federation helps us guide grassroots football through the national football hierarchy in a correct manner, so that we ensure that it reaches the lowest tier of our football hierarchy, which is the district associations and their members, going right up till the national federation. Currently, 6 states have adopted our program full-time, and in the long term, AIFF aims to have all states through the state associations adopt our grassroots program. We now have full-time personnel in each of the project states, a development officer who is basically responsible to oversee and implement the grassroots program, which I think in a lot of states in India is the first time that something like this is happening, where full-time personnel are looking into a program. So that's a key achievement for us as well. Now, what are the benefits of having a federated structure for grassroots football? As I mentioned, each state has different conditions and requirements with regard to grassroots football. The objective is to be able to provide solutions and plans accordingly. Just to give an example, we have 2 project states, one Maharashtra and Mizoram. Maharashtra has a population of 110 million, Mizoram has a population of 1 million. So you can see the difference in the size, the demographics, the specific requirements of each of the states. So it's very essential that we, along with the state associations, develop something that is very specific to that particular state. State football associations, again, are best placed to understand and address the needs of their state. It provides easy accessibility and a better connect to all the local state football stakeholders. It gives us better administration, better governance, and better monitoring of the project, and it addresses all specific aspects of GR effectively. What we have also introduced as part of our system is a unique concept of a certification program for all grassroots centers. A grassroots center essentially can mean a club, a school, or an NGO or a community initiative, which basically delivers grassroots programs on a day-to-day basis. So through a certification, these grassroots centers can get certified by the state association and then get into the mainstream of grassroots football of the AIFF. This is a brief idea how our grassroots hierarchy works. So it's the All India Football Federation on the top, the State Football Association, which is our project association, which penetrates down into each and every district, and then we have schools, football clubs, and NGOs, which are part of the district association, and to whom basically we want the grassroots football program to penetrate to. Again, it is vitally important that all stakeholders work very closely with state associations and the AIFF to create an inclusive, sustainable, and a strong grassroots football structure. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Suvrat, well done. It was a good presentation, so I hope everybody gets an idea of what the Football Association is doing. You might ask yourself, national team coach, what is he doing here? That's a good question. First of all, I work in India now for nearly 2 years. I learned a lot, I've seen a lot, and as Suvrat already mentioned, we recently started with a master plan to develop football in India, because that's our job. We are the specialists in football, we develop football. So Suvrat already mentioned there's an overlap, because many of you work to use sports to have effects for kids in areas that they're probably not the best areas in the society. We had a great example of our young friend here coming out of a poor neighborhood, and he has his dream of probably becoming, you want to become a professional football player, yes? Look at his smile, is beautiful. So these are the effects that are beautiful kids come out of the slums and start playing sports, whether it's football or any other sport, and all of a sudden their life changes, and that is really beautiful. Once I worked for the Football Association in Holland, and I went to Nairobi in Kenya, and there's also a huge slum area with 4 million people. And in that slum, over the years, they worked on programs like everybody here in the audience is working on. They created an own football competition in the slums of Matare, and the football club was existing from Matare United. You know that? Are you from there? That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. So, what I'm telling you now is so you can you know what I'm talking about. And in that in the time I was there, I think there were 20,000 kids playing a football competition every weekend, and they organized it themselves. But besides that, there were many other programs like writing and reading and becoming photographers, and it was just a beautiful organization of the slums using sport to get kids out of their misery or their bad life every day. And in the end, what I heard is that even 6 players from the national team were out of that competition in slums. So now you see the overlap, and my presence here is that so many kids get the opportunity to play football, and again, he's a great example of that. Our job is now, when the kids play football and they really love to play football, we take it further down the line, because we want to bring them into a circuit or into an organization where they can develop their football talents, and in the end, when they are good enough, they might come into the national team. So that is a beautiful overlap of the programs that everybody here in the audience is running, and we are a specific organization, and we want to develop football first of all, give the kids the opportunity to become a professional player. If not, they can still play football because they love to play football. So that is kind of the overlap that is here, and that's why I'm here as a national team coach, because we really benefit from, and Suvrat showed it, there's this pyramid. It starts on grassroots. Lots of kids want to play football, and we have to give them the opportunity to play football. And if they play football every week, then we bring them into systems so we can monitor them, we can scout them, and once the period becomes smaller and smaller, because the better players will reach the top, then my job is much easier, because we have many more kids with great qualities that can play football at the highest level. So it starts all from that broad basis of giving kids the opportunity. Then they come into the structures of the AIFF, and we give them the best training and the best opportunities to play football. So I want to congratulate everybody on the work that you do, because it's really beautiful work, and I've seen myself that it gives kids a great opportunity and a much better future. So thanks again for that. So this was my short explanation why the national team coach of India is here, because we cannot work without the grassroots. And thanks for your story. It was really beautiful, and I wish you all the best of luck with your dream of becoming a football player, and hopefully you will succeed in that. So thanks everybody. This is my short contribution, and I wish everybody good luck in whatever you do with all the kids. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Kovermans, for very nicely explaining the link between grassroots football and how it can help in getting players to even reach the top level. So all people like Magic Bus, all these organizations like Magic Bus, like Football Link, who are doing all this work with young people, you can feel happy that you're participating. It's a double effect. You're not just helping in social amelioration, but also, hopefully, from this vast quantity of players that emerge, some will come to the top. Anyway, let's move on. We now come to a person, Mr. O.P. Singh, who represents Haryana. I share a small anecdote. When the Commonwealth Games in Delhi in 2010, when we calculated, India did exceptionally well, as most host countries do, And we came second just after Australia. They always win the Commonwealth Games. And for once we beat England. We came second, I think, for the first time. We calculated that majority of those medals which India got were by sportsmen and women from Haryana. 1/3, over about, if I memory, 36 to 38 medals were by sportsmen and women from Haryana. And if Haryana had participated as a country, they would have come 5th in the Commonwealth Games. You know, it would have been Australia, England, India, Canada, and Haryana and New Zealand together. You know, so they have the one state which is really a small state, newly formed state. I mean, they don't have that much of a history, but have really taken sports at a very serious level, have followed a lot of what Wim Kovermans and Suvrat talked about the grassroots level, maybe not in football, but in a lot of other sports, wrestling, athletics, boxing, even hockey, especially women's hockey. The bulk of the team comes from Haryana. So, Mr. O.P. Singh is, former Haryana sports director in the government of Haryana, and he started this very iconic program, Play for India. And he has a very interesting book also, Say Yes to Sports, and in which he chronicles sports' role in India's evolution as a country. And a widely respected professional, I'll let O.P. Singh take over.
Clap for me also. Good morning, and nearly you can say three quarter good morning and 1 quarter good afternoon. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Mr. Kapadia. And I absolutely have no qualification to be here. I am a career police officer. Subrat is a kind of a graduate in MBA in sports management from Liverpool. Then we have a national football coach. So I'm a small man walking into a big shoes. So please don't expect too much from me. Just to kind of make things a little more tolerable. I understand what it is like being third, fourth, fifth to speak in morning session when you're not really awake. So I just want to make things easier for you. So it is a kind of melting the ice, breaking the ground, whatever you say. So we quickly go through 2-3 slides. शुरू से शुरू करिए. We have got a Innovin magazine, Sam Petroda and kind of these people edit it, and they document innovations. It is a quarterly magazine. So they have documented our grassroots program as outstanding innovation. So they have a column of change makers. So we had this scholarship program for attracting young children to sports that they featured as outstanding innovation. And mind it attracts 2 million children every year to the playgrounds. So some kind of you can say. And Subrat will be interested in it. It has kind of numericalized sports management in India. It is heavily data driven. It is not about conjecture, guessing, inspirational talks. It's data based. So I have this write up on the mail, and Pratik may like to, the Magic Bus may like it to mail it to all the participants. So one missing link in management in sports in India is about missing data. We don't talk about data. We talk lots about, we regret our lowest standing in sports, and then we aspire how good we can be. We are a big country, but we somehow in the way miss out on data. So this is one slide I wanted to share with you. Another is the coverage of NDTV. So I think it's just to have variations in our conversations so that I can communicate better. If you find my name and photograph here, it is not aimed at personalizing the achievements. It is the achievement of thousands of people and the government. I'm just kind of standing here on behalf of them.
Studied done by sports consultancy firm Winning Matters has ranked Haryana as the #1 state in terms of promoting sports in India. And that's not surprising given that Haryana's sports people won a third of the 101 medals India won at the Commonwealth Games. So what exactly does Haryana do differently? Take a look at some of those unique initiatives.
Haryana may have the worst sex ratio in the country, but they do have something to brag about. India won 101 medals at last year's Commonwealth Games. Of this, 32 came from Haryanvi athletes, and that doesn't even include the likes of Saina Nehwal, who now live elsewhere. Incentives for athletes include government jobs, and now there are special schemes to unearth more talent. 3 years ago, Haryana started the SPAT, or the Sports and Physical Aptitude Test. Open trials such as this one are open to children from the age of 8 to 18.
A parent finds, rather than investing in real estate, invest in a child if he's a SPAT scholarship holder. So we in Haryana want to make sports as productive a career option as higher studies. The agenda is simple. So I say it's cool to play. You should play.
So how does the SPAT scheme work? Children are put through 7 different tests ranging from an 800-meter run and a broad jump. Children are tested by a government-appointed coach. Anyone scoring 75% in the SPAT, then they are entitled to a scholarship. 1,500 per month for 8 to 14 years and 2,000 for 15 to 19 years. However, the rider is that these kids have to spend 22 days of the month playing their chosen sport.
It's a feeling as if I'm growing up and earning my money, and I'm happy to contribute to my family. I participated in SPAT in 2009 and it was a nice experience. I got to know that I'm good in short running. So now I go for sports moments and I also won some medals.
The annual Haryana State Olympics have also played their part in making sports a much sought after vocation.
हरियाणा की सिर्फ 2% जनता है पूरे देश में, लेकिन कॉमनवेल्थ खेलों के अंदर 40% मेडल हरियाणा के खिलाड़ियों ने लिए.
The Sports Minister Ajay Makhan has been so impressed by Haryana's model that he asked them to make a presentation to all state sports ministers. In fact, a recent FICCI study named Haryana as the #1 state in terms of sports promotion.
With initiatives like SPAT, the government of Haryana has clearly proved that there is no spat between the government and the students. And do the students agree?
It's good to play!
Once more!
It's good to play!
So there's your answer with camera person Prem Singh and Manoj Kumar, Ashish Bhatia for NDTV.
So I have already taken so much of time out of 10 minutes that I've been given. But the idea is that I have documented this experience in this book. And Mr. Sasi Tharoor has went on to say it is a remarkable book. And I hope it sparks a revolution in school sports across the country. It should not be taken very seriously. It is a polite endorsement of the book. There is nothing magical in it. It is simply, as I understand sports, the way Magic Bus sees it and the government sees it and I see it, there are fundamental differences. What I see, I like saying augmented mainstream. A story was going on what Sachin Tendulkar should do after a retirement. And there were many suggestions. He should join politics, he's so popular, and if Imran Khan has failed in Pakistan, he can work in India. But I personally felt we have enough of politicians who are trying their best to reduce social inequity or take the country on the path of development. Sachin should look beyond. Basically, Magic Bus should have called me for speaking on peace and development in sports. I will take this time because we have already introduced our part of the mandate about grassroots sports. So what is happening in Central and South Asia? Youths have been condemned as a threat to global peace. They have been condemned to drug, condemned to violence. And we all are witness to the situation that counter-violence is not helping. You have more recruits in radical outfits than ever. And they have struck very decisive blows. When I grew up in schools and colleges, I joined the government and I joined the workforce. I had open access to hotels and public places, and there was not many people around guarding us. So sports can be a very, very effective intervention in conflict zone. All the income and employment opportunities that are aspirational are mostly limited to sets of kind of reading, writing, debating, and accounting. When it comes to athletic skill, there is not much of opportunities. So when we in India or in Central or South Asia or anywhere in the world, when we say people are not taking to sports, reason may be two. One is lack of awareness. If parents understand that sports is important for development of key personality differentiators like competitiveness, perseverance, commitment, they will ask the children to go and play. There is lack of awareness. If they know that it impacts the cognitive processes favorably, it is important for community building, which makes one a team leader, they will say go and play. So one is awareness, and another is lack of realistically achievable career opportunities. Not everybody can go and play in Indian team and make some money. So we have to make district level sports achievements, you can say, realistically achievable and rewarding also. Block level sporting achievements. A district level student gets a good career option, you will agree with me. He can become a doctor, an engineer, or whatever. But a district level player has no future. So don't blame kids if they don't take to sports, and don't blame parents if they don't send kids to sports. So we have to augment the mainstream, we have to open up the mainstream. And coming back to Sachin Tendulkar, he is kind of person who is known, who is respected, who is admired. It takes 40 years to produce a Sachin Tendulkar, and he should put his brand to better use. And from this platform, I say he should be kind of working to reclaim youth in Central and South Asia particularly, who have been condemned to violence, who have been condemned to drug, and who are progressively seen as threat to world peace. We need somebody to talk for them, to talk to them. Why there can't be Manchester United operating from Kabul, or Liverpool from, you can say, from Pakistan and Bajiristan. So unless you give them income and employment opportunities around their, what say, fighting skills. They are fighters, they live in tough terrains, in our Naxal areas, in our Jammu and Kashmir. So they live in tough terrains, and they don't have access to mainstream career options like management and doctor and those kind of things. They're good at fighting, they live in tough conditions. So why their violent tendencies cannot be sublimated into kind of realistically achievable career income and employment opportunities? So my take is that in situations where you find youth are being lost out to violence, sublimate their violent instincts. Sports is basically a mock fight. So if they find mock fighting is rewarding, there is every chance that they will all go for it. People are basically intelligent. They make choices that they think are good for them. So just Sachin is kind of just a rider, but people like him should talk for the youth and talk for how sports can make a difference in breaking the barriers that is creeping up between the mainstream population and those alienated youth. Even Taliban respects him. A journalist misquoted Taliban by saying that we will not stop praising Sachin only because he's an Indian. The Taliban said. And there was a coverage in newspaper that Taliban says, no praising Sachin, otherwise we will kill you. So Taliban then again went after the journalist who misquoted them. So my idea is that we all who are community leaders, we should kind of go after and promoting sports as a income and employment opportunities around athletic skills, so that enterprising youth who cannot find access to mainstream through reading, writing, and debating skills and accounting skills, they can deploy their athletic skill and feel part of the mainstream, earn livelihood. So we have that. I will conclude with our model of sports promotion. So it's basically PIE model, P-I-E. P is participation that Subrat is doing, making more and more people to participate for the sake of playing. They may not become a career athlete, no problem. But they should play because it will make them entrepreneurial. It will make them more competitive. In classrooms, you learn so many things that are very valuable in work life. But commitment, perseverance, and competitiveness, you learn only in contact games. So game is important for a population to be entrepreneurial. And there is inclusion. Why only rich should play, or why only able-bodied should play? Why not poor also? And why not disabled also? So we are also for inclusion. In Haryana, we have made sporting achievement equally rewarding for the both. and then excellence. So I think excellence takes away lots of resources and discussion and kind of things when we talk about the sports. But it is time for us to take note and say, participation is important, inclusion is important, sports is key for. Can you please roll it down? Please. So these are basically summing up things for you that I try to talk. That one very interesting thing, when from a police, I'm basically a kind of a police officer who was taken to sports to make a difference. So I educated myself how to manage the sports. So one way was to do is to Google. So when I Googled the sports in ancient India, we had 129 million links. And when I Googled the sports in medieval India, it is 4.9 million links. The differential of 300 times. So can it be said that in medieval time, we are poor at mock fight, so we had more attacks from the Hindu Kush, and we were subjugated for 1,000 years. So I say sports is far more important than we really understand. And then it has positive correlations with, you can say, cognitive growth, personality development, community development, social inclusion, and youth engagement. We all understand what does it mean. And I say it is possible if we have imaginative incentive architecture, and ours is a rights-based governance. You understand, Mr. Kapadia, we have locked in lots of real estate and resources in the name of sports. But when you want to go and see where a Commonwealth village is, and if you want to take your kids over there, no entry, not allowed. So I basically feel let power go to the people. In developing countries where government's delivery system is not to the people's satisfaction, so there is a need for giving right to the people. Like a Commonwealth village, there is one stakeholder, he maintains a website. If you want to play there, if you want to go there, it should be accessible to you as a matter of right. Not because one custodian says that you are not allowed in. So it is time to audit our sports resources and throw it open to the people as a matter of right. So I say rights-based governance is the way forward. Like right to information, we have a right to play also. Schools have licenses and they have conditions for promoting sports. They don't fulfill it. Parents should have a right. So we need to make it into some kind of rights for the people. Access to optimum recreational physical activity as a matter of right. So I say it is people should have right to play. And we need to build it, as I said, as a core service sector industry. The moment you make a stadium or you organize a tournament, thousands of industries pick up: hospitality, construction, transportations, you can say merchandise, so many things. So it is basically a core sector industry. Why you are treating it as a leisure? You can do without it. It is like tourism, it is a service sector industry. And then it is a developmental program, like in Naxal areas or secessionist area, or you can Central Asia where you have alienated youth. So you can reclaim them back to their convenience. Sports can give them an access ramp to the mainstream. They can deploy their fighting skills into sports and earn a livelihood. So I'm sorry if I've delivered a heavy talk, but I tried to communicate. And I thank Magic Bus, I thank Mr. Kapadia for giving me time. And thanks for hearing me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. O.P. Singh, for a very comprehensive analysis of what sports has done in Haryana. We now move on, and Mr. Steven Sonderman, Asian Director, One World Football Project. He's the Asian Director, running the idea, to play, you need equipment also. That is also very important. There are various aspects to sports: playing field, equipment. People sometimes cannot afford it. So every aspect is interrelated, and everybody contributes in sort of sports and society. And Mr. Sunderman has had a long experience of working, and he was also Southeast Asia Regional Director for Spirit and Soccer, and with projects in the Southeast Asia region, primarily Laos and Cambodia. I'll ask him to take over.
Good morning, my name is Steven Sonderman. Thank you very much, Mr. Kapadia, for that introduction. It was wonderful. Also, thank you, Shivam. Excellent, I love hearing your stories. That's what kind of drives most of the people in this room. We have a short video I'll show first for One World Football Project.
Soccer has become one of the few places where kids can find safety in Ciudad Juarez. With the US border cutting a jagged line across its northern edge, this dusty desert Mexican border town is known as one of the world's most dangerous cities.
In 2010, we were named the most violent city in the world outside war zones. It was just awful. I mean, we had the most important drug cartels, the whole North America here in Ciudad Juarez, fighting because this is a natural pathway for drugs to go into the United States. We needed programs like this. We really needed programs like this.
Behind these walls, something is changing for Juarez with a little help from the One World footballs donated by Chevrolet. The program called Aganar uses the lessons learned through soccer to give at-risk teens a shot at life.
Aganar's slogan is, I believe in the power of football to change lives, and we truly believe in that.
Aganar does that through a three-phase plan.
Phase number 1, that's pure soccer and all the things that soccer teaches the kids. Phase number 2, that's technical training. Phase number 3, that's internships.
The lessons the kids learn give them the skills to get a job. But like this troubled town itself, the path to success is rough, with broken glass and rocks littering the tire-lined pitch.
Aganar means to win. That's basically what these kids are doing with these One World footballs. They're winning. I mean, you've seen the kids with your own eyes. They're winning a better future for themselves and for their families also.
If this ball can't deflate, then I won't be deflated either. I aim to keep going.
Pues yo quiero ser como este balón, que
I want to be like this ball. A lot of people will bring you down, but you can bring yourself up and be full of life.
A ball has given these kids a reason to believe. It's created change, and hopefully it will help a community that's seen so much despair find that life and the future are like the labyrinth that sits in the center of this safe and almost surreal place.
This labyrinth here, it symbolizes the paths that these kids have to go through. You know, all the turns and twists along the road, all the difficulties they have to overcome in order to achieve their goals. In the end of the program, when the kids have finished all the 3 phases, they have pretty much overcome all these difficulties that life had for them. They see the light at the end of the tunnel. That's a big thing in Juarez. That's what it's all about.
Chevrolet, founding sponsor of One World Football Project. Join us to share the power of play.
Thank you. I'll have to beg your pardon. We had a little bit of technical difficulty, so I'm going to be running through the PowerPoint in a PDF file. So, firstly, just in respect to the discussion today, especially grassroots sports for training and grassroots sports for social good are not mutually exclusive. Today, I'm speaking more from a different element, as Mr. Capadilla pointed out, is the equipment side of it. I have particular experience in this because I ran programs in Laos and Cambodia where it was for Spirit of Soccer, and we were teaching children about landmines, how to avoid landmines by using football and soccer. One of our major issues and costs were our footballs, because we would basically provide the footballs to the communities. Both countries are relatively similar in their average monthly wage for the parents is roughly $61. So buying a $6 to $8 football is just not in the equation. Same thing goes for the Ministry of Education. They just do not have the funds for it. So actually having the equipment or the resources, even fields, is a very difficult thing, and providing a football that lasts is incredibly important. And I saw that first thing, and I think most people in this room can relate to that experience. Play is a key component in grassroots football, and play and education work very well, and I'll be talking about play in the sense of the Southeast Asian version of grassroots, which is the word play. They don't necessarily relate to grassroots in the English form. They use it more in the play. What drives me was a question that was asked for me a few days ago, and I have been sports focused pretty much most of my life. I was fortunate enough to grow up in Middle America, and we had an amazing grassroots sports system from an early age in the early 70s. I was playing 3 sports on teams by the time I was 5.5 years old. Specifically in basketball, for instance, we had leagues called the midgets, where you just have a bunch of little kids that ran around, but the parents were the coaches. The parents had to go to training sessions to learn how to be a coach. You know, there were some good stories and bad stories, but all in all, you had an army of kids playing basketball. Also an army of kids playing soccer, something that a lot of people don't understand about the United States is you think that we don't play soccer, but most kids start off playing soccer and then they move into the other sports. So it's the largest participant sport for children in the United States, and it has been for a very long time. So I continued my focus on sports because early on I learned how to communicate with other kids, how to communicate with adults and coaches, how to get through fights. These are very important lessons that you learn early on, and it also builds your confidence. Winning builds your confidence. You know, losing emphasizes you in certain ways. You need to do both, and you need to learn from them. So as I got older, I ended up playing in collegiate sports. I played many sports in high school, and then basically throughout my life was a thread of sports. I adopted climbing later on in life, and I became a lead climber and a guide internationally in Europe and in North America. Very different from the team sports I was playing earlier, but also lessons to be learned. The confidence that I gained from the grassroots sports that I was part of early on are what gave me the opportunity to be a climber, for instance. I took that information that I had, and I also moved into the sports marketing field. I worked for Adidas for many years, for North Face, and then eventually took a position as director of an NGO in Cambodia and running the one, and also opening the new one in Laos. So I used all of that sports knowledge, confidence that I learned, and I owe it all to my grassroots upbringing that brought me to the point that I am and my successes in sports today. And my motivations just to that point, which sports, what drives me, sports, play, evolutionary science, human spirit, and innovation. I'm here representing the One World Football Project, which is innovation in its basic definition. It's a ball that does not need a needle and does not need a pump, which is something that I know many of you understand is a very key aspect to this, to a piece of sports equipment. Play as a definition is a range of voluntary, intrinsic, motivated activities normally associated with pleasure, enjoyment, fun. I would completely agree with that. The power of play is universal. Before we can walk and talk, we play. Barriers are lifted. Religious, political, socioeconomic differences are forgotten and set aside, and play is born out of passion. Whoa. One World Football Project's goal is a world where children have hope for a better future. These are children in Myanmar. Our mission is to enable children the world over to discover their own heroic potential by helping to keep the spirit of play alive. It's all about play for us. How do we do this? It's the ball. It never goes flat. It's an amazing invention. I think a few of them might be passed around here. Definitely play with it. You can take a samurai sword and stab it, and it will go right back to the shape it's in. It'll actually perform the same way as well. I know it's an amazing thought, but it actually does work. It's not the ball that Wayne Rooney and crew want to use in the heavy competition matches, but it is the ball that gets kids that opportunity to get to that point. Just having a ball is the key. We did a Uganda test, or actually UNICEF did the Uganda test. In 2011, they conducted a 4-month test in Uganda comparing the One World footballs to normal inflated footballs, regular use at 80 primary schools. Basically, over the course of 1 week, 75% of the inflated balls had failed, 100% within 1 month. That's 80 balls. And that's about normal for what I found with the organization that I ran. We were going through about 10,000 balls per year. As far as the One World footballs, 99% of them are still in existence in these communities. One of them was disappeared. So imagine one in the river or somebody else has it, but they don't have the destroyed ball. Our 5 to 7 year goal is to positively impact the lives of over 300 million youths living at risk in at-risk situations by getting 10 million balls into play in the world. Our social impact of the last year, there's 700,000 balls put into play, 19 million lives positively touched, 170 countries, 340 community partners, many here in India right now. Our grassroots football partners that we've just, some of the stories similar to the story here in Juarez, Street Soccer Mexico, Football United in Myanmar, Salt Academy in Cambodia, Kick for Life in Lesotho. All amazing stories, and I could go into detail on each of them, but we don't have time for that. For community impact partners globally, right now we're looking at about 343. That number will be growing dramatically, and we're not even fully engrossed in India and China and Indonesia yet, which are definitely areas where we definitely need to get in the footballs into those countries. For the India football distribution, which basically just now is happening, obviously we know the population. 50% of the Indian population is age 25 years under. Primary schools, secondary schools, ministries of sports, education, NGOs, the list, that's who we're working with. The distribution to over 50 plus sports for development organizations throughout India, and this is all with the help of our lead partner, Slim Soccer. Dr. Abhijit Bars has been incredibly helpful and facilitated the entire process with his team, which is not an easy process, as we all possibly have had experiences with bringing things into India. 22,000 of the balls reached, or will be reaching 700 plus children. Is just a list of some of the partners, which many of you will recognize quite a few, and Kapadia already mentioned Football Link, Magic Bus, of course. And then global partners, which is very important for us, is we've signed MOU with the AFC, AFDP, to deliver balls mostly through the federations. As you can see, this is not the entire list, but many member associations that we are involved with, and this list is growing immensely. Football for Hope Centers, mostly in Africa, and then now some more in Brazil. Just grassroots football, absolutely pivotal to the long-term development of national team football, but it's also major social importance, promoting grassroots football and ensuring the long-term involvement of participants in the sport is a top priority. This is my email address if you need me, and I welcome your comments, and please do play around with the ball. You cannot destroy it. Well, you can. It's nearly indestructible. We give it to lions, to elephants. They try. We had a Lao chief cut the ball in half and made 2 bowls, but that was pretty much the only way. Or you could burn it, but it will hold up, and it's a really fantastic product for most of the work that we do. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stephen. And Tom is currently president of the Australian Rules Football Association of India. So a new game.
Good to see some fans here. Thank you.
And introducing Indian children to Australian rules football. So I'll let Tom take over.
Thank you, Novi. Thanks, everyone, and nice to be here today. Any day that I get to step out of the office and come and talk about sport and listen to sport is a very, very good one. And as Australians, we could do that all day, every day, all week. So thanks very much for having me here today. As Novi said, I'm the president of the Australian Rules Football Association of India. Largely a ceremonial role behind the scenes, but it comes out of my passion for the game, having played it as a youngster and seeing what's on the ground here. I've been in India for 3 years now, working at the Australian High Commission. So, as Vim said, I've learnt a lot, I've seen a lot here, and it's been a fantastic roller coaster. So, thanks for having me here today. We're a young organisation which is still developing. We're a different game, we're a different sport. Some of you might not be aware of us. So we don't have a lot of lessons to share. I mean, Mr. Singh had some fantastic examples from Haryana. The football project is brilliant. What I wanted to do today, though, is just to explore some of the themes that I've been speaking to a few of you about and listening to around teamwork, fair play, equal access, gender equality, community interaction, development, and most importantly for kids, I think, is fun. I'd also like to meander through those themes, but also try and address Novi's point or question about whether grassroots sports is just for social development or it's for elite athlete development. And as Stephen said, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think they can serve both purposes, but you need to harness it in the right way. So anyway, I'm just going to take you on a bit of a journey through the wonderful and exciting world of Australian football, both